Alright guys, welcome back to another video. I hope you're all doing well. Now, I wanted to make this video partly down to the reason that I've been wanting to make more car related content lately. I did mention in a video a couple of months back that I was going to kind of make the transition away from being a fitness based channel into, you know, having some more car related content. The majority of that car related content will be coming later on in the year when I get a car which will allow me to make videos on it and whatever else, make modifications and, you know, just make some cool content with it basically. But the subject of this video is, why do I drive a 13-year-old Vauxhall Corsa? Now, if you've been subscribed to me for quite a while now, you know that in 2016, I want to say, that's wrong, 2017, I bought a BMW E60 5 Series 520D M Sport. That was a mouthful. And I made a few videos on it and whatever else, and I only actually kept the car for about 6 months. And I made a video, you know, on why I'm selling it and whatever else. And to sum it up, the reason that I got rid of it, it had a very expensive repair bill. It would have cost a lot to repair some electrical problems which it had, which it couldn't have gone away because I had an accident in it. And certain airbags were deployed. I actually repaired, you know, replaced some of the airbags, but they left with an SRS error, which I think I would have needed a new SRS module, and it also would have needed to be like coded and everything by BMW. So I kind of made a mistake trying to repair that. I didn't want to sell the car as it was because I wouldn't have got a lot of money for it. So I broke it down, sold it as parts. I made so much money from parts. Like in total so far, like I've still got parts left. It's like over £9,000. So, you know, definitely made the right decision to break it and sell it as parts as opposed to just selling it as a whole car. But yeah, so I wanted to get rid of that because it did have an expensive repair bill on it, and I just wasn't in the best place financially to, you know, achieve my goals. My goals at the time was to begin saving for a house. I'm now in a great position where I am doing that. Me and the girlfriend are saving like aggressively for a house. We're saving for 4 years to get like a huge deposit for a house, and then we can just have a small mortgage which we want to pay off as quick as possible. So we're in a great position now. I have zero debt. I've had zero debt for like the past, I want to say like 12 to 18 months. Like I have like money saved up. I'm in like a really good financial position, and my outgoings are like super low, so, you know, I'm not really leaving myself with too much risk is a good word to use there. So, you know, like if I basically lost my job now because my outgoings are so low, I wouldn't really like be struggling. Like I have an emergency fund in the bank as well, so, you know, I could support myself for like 6 months to a year without even having to work. Do you know what I mean? So I'm in a very good financial position now, and part of that reason is because I decided to get rid of my old car. The insurance was going to cost a lot on it as well, because I had at that point no claims bonus, which, especially if you're a young driver, no claims bonus is like absolutely massive. Like that's the biggest thing that's going to make your insurance prices drop down. So here's me, I would have had like a BMW 5 Series, which isn't a cheap car to insure. I would have had no claims bonus and no claims bonus, and I would have had to have an expensive repair bill, and I needed tires and all the rest of it, and like I was in debt. Like I had like I was in debt on my credit card because I was like paying for the repairs. I did plan to pay it all back and whatever else in due time. I wasn't gonna like pay interest on it. That was all interest free, obviously. but I've kind of changed my mindset, and I was like, look, I'm not in a good position right now, I need to get into a good position. So I'm just gonna like just get rid of this car, or get the most for it by selling it as parts, and I'm just gonna pay off all this debt as fast as possible and get myself in a real good position. And in the meantime, I'm just going to buy the cheapest, crappiest car, which is gonna get me from A to B, which is gonna be economical to run, you know, good on fuel. It's gonna be cheap to tax, cheap to insure, cheap to buy parts for. And this is the car that I've ended up with. So it's a Vauxhall Corsa C 2006. It's a 1.3 CDTI, so 1.3 diesel. It's very good on fuel. It's £30 a year to tax. It's cheap for insurance. I know that because my first car was a Vauxhall Corsa C, and I actually have some parts spare left up my loft. So that's always good, you know, because certain things are the same on this car as there was on my very first car, so I can interchange them. So that's good, like some trim pieces, things like that. I just have a generally, you know, quite a good knowledge on the Corsa C, because, you know, I did have it as my first car. It's my first car that I ever like worked on, whatever else. And to be honest, they are generally a pretty easy car to work on. You know, I haven't had too many stressful situations when it comes to changing, you know, parts and whatever else. The parts themselves, there's like plenty of aftermarket parts on them. I'm not going to bother, you know, going to Vauxhall and spending too much on like genuine parts and whatever else, because generally aftermarket parts are pretty good and they're going to kind of do the job. You know, if you get like for example, I bought 2 brand new aftermarket drive shafts. I think it's from like J&R. They were like £25 each. So I just replaced it. Like basically, one of the boots had split on one of the drive shafts. So to replace that, just the boot, it would have cost like 15-20 quid. So I thought, look, I'm not going to mess around trying to change a boot on a drive shaft. So I'm just going to buy both drive shafts brand new, so 50 quid, got both brand new drive shafts, and they're actually fairly simple to replace as well, because my old ones, they would have been worn, and the ABS ring on them was absolutely just like chewed up. There's like near enough no teeth left on it at all. So just as well that I replace them. Like I've changed things like the all of the front arms, so the wishbones, the drop links, the track rods and the tie rod ends and all that, and that's all like been very cheap for me to do. So I've added lowering springs, I've added decent tires on it. It's had a new alternator. The alternator went like last month now, and it's all just been like very cheap to do. And because I've had like such low like outgoings, I've just like had the money just like there, like ready for me to do, and it just hasn't been like stressful. Like I could imagine someone in a position which doesn't have any money, but they have an expensive car and they have like an expensive bill coming up, and it's like, no, like it's like the end of the world. To me, like when I have something break on the car, it's like it's not the end of the world, it's just an inconvenience. Do you know what I mean? Like that's why you have an emergency fund like in your bank. That's why it's definitely a good idea to have some money sat aside for a rainy day, because let's be honest, it does rain at some point. So yeah, so that's why obviously I decided to get like the cheapest car possible. It gets like this, like I do a lot of miles in a year, like 15 to 20,000 miles a year, and this car gets me about between 50 and 60 miles per gallon. Now me, I do quite a lot of short trips, so if I'm only doing short trips I get about, I'd say about 50 miles per gallon. But if I'm going on the motorway, you know, like on a run, I can get like 70 miles per gallon like fairly easy. If I'm sitting at like 60 mile an hour, I can get that, because one bad thing is the gearbox. When you're in 5th gear on this, it does rev quite high. When you're doing like 70, you're doing like 3,000 revs, which is quite high in a diesel. So, but if you're sitting at like 60 mile an hour, it's not really a problem. So, you know, like I said, really cheap on insurance, really cheap to tax, £30 a year, really good on fuel, cheap parts. I already had some parts from my very first car which are broke. I have good knowledge on it, and you know, you'd be surprised, you know, it's 1.3 diesel Vauxhall Corsa. Like, it doesn't sound that like special, that, you know, performance based, right? But, you know, this thing pretty much has the same weight of, like, you know, a can of baked beans. You know, there's honestly not much to the car. So it's a very light car. I'm guessing it weighs about a ton. Now, obviously being a turbo diesel, you can remap it. Mine's been remapped, so it's anywhere between like 95 and 100 horsepower apparently. It's had the EGR switched off. And, you know, once you give a diesel, you know, a remap, have the EGR switched off, give it some lowering springs and some decent tyres. I've got some Goodyear efficient grips. They're like rated A for like wet and dry roads. And they like just grip like amazing. Like, I didn't actually realise that there was a big difference when it comes to like tyres. I just thought, you know, I'm just gonna get the cheap ones because, you know, they can't be, you know, it's all just rubber, right? So it's not gonna make that much difference, but honestly, it's night and day difference. Like, from the tyres that were already on this car originally to like what I've got on here now, it's like night and day difference. Like, they just grip so well. And like I was saying anyway, so I've gave it some lowering springs, some decent tyres, and I've changed like multiple components on the car. Fitted a new disc rear axle because it had drums before, so my brakes are like good now. And yeah, you know, 95 to 100 horsepower in this is actually not that bad. It's actually, you know, it being a diesel, it's very torquey. You have the, you know, the low down torque, and it's not a bad little thing. It's actually okay for overtaking. And you know, I quite enjoy it. It's actually surprisingly fun, like, for a car that you don't need, especially like going down B roads, you know, you don't need like a 500 horsepower, you know, supercar. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's actually pretty fun to drive, I'm not gonna lie. I actually do, you know, find myself smiling when I'm like, you know, really just going around some B roads, you know, keeping tight to the corners and whatever else. So yeah, it's not actually a bad car. Reliability wise, it's apparently like the 1.3 diesel isn't the best. The 1.7, which is the Isuzu engine, is the better choice apparently when it comes to the Corsa. Like, the 1.3 is actually a Fiat engine, so it's like French, and it's like not the best choice. But yeah, you know, I'm generally happy with the car. It hasn't caused me too many problems. I haven't spent a whole lot of money on it, and I just see it's kind of like the normal now for like young drivers to just think, oh, you know, I'm just gonna go and buy a brand new like Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Fiesta ST, Focus ST on finance, right? So these are like young people that might still be living at home. I am still living at home, obviously myself. Me and my girlfriend are saving for a big deposit for a house. But I would consider myself to be in a good position. Now, some people, they might be in a good position, but then they jeopardize that by taking on loads of outgoings, and they just, like, you know, effectively make their saving potential smaller. Like, you know, so if you're buying a car on finance, you might have a £300 a month finance payment. It might be, you know, if it's a brand new car, it's going to cost more to insure because it's worth more. You know, then you've got your tax, and then the cost to run it and all the rest of it. And it's like that car that you own, it's just going to be like depreciating in value like so rapidly. Like, this car that I bought was £950. Probably gonna get still close to that now if I was to sell it, do you know what I mean? So I haven't really lost like much money on it. And there's like a huge myth where it comes to the, oh, if you have an old car, you're just gonna be repairing it all the time. And it's honestly, it's just not true. Like, you just have to be smart when you're buying a car. You know, look at the reliability of it, look at the price of aftermarket parts and all that. And you know, it definitely does help if you can do the work yourself, because obviously you're going to be saving on labor and whatever else. But think of it like this, right? say you have a car payment, a finance car payment, like £300 a month. Over the course of 1 year, that's £3,600. You're not going to be spending £3,600 on repairs on an old car, are you? Like, since I've had this car, for everything that I've had to do, you know, done on it, so I've had like lowering springs, tyres, you know, bloody hell, like all the suspension components that have changed, the rear axle, the remap, the cruise control that I had fitted and all that. I've probably spent like £1,000 like in the course of like 12 to 14 months, and most of that stuff like didn't need doing. It's just like I wanted to do it. So you know what I mean, like I could have easily spent like 3-4 times that amount just on like a car payment. So yeah, I guess the main reason why I decided to drive a 13-year-old Vauxhall Corsa is the money factor. You know, it's Bangonomics. It's you know, an old car that can be reliable, which, you know, you get for super cheap. Like when you get a car that's 10+ years old, it's only going to be like 5 to 10% of the original. It's only going to be worth 5 to 10% of the original sale value. So this car, when new, I'm guessing was somewhere between like 10 and 15,000 pounds. That's just at a guess. But obviously I paid 950 quid for it, so you know, it's only between 5 and 10% of what the original market value was. So yeah, you know, and I've got myself a decent, reliable car. Like I said, it's cheap to run in every aspect, and it does me well. You know, like I said earlier, I do plan on buying a new car later this year, but I'll be saving up. I'll be paying cash for that. I'll be in a much better position because I'll have savings in the bank. I'll have a car fund, a dedicated car fund, where that money will simply just go to repairs and the running of the vehicle, you know, for tyres, insurance, tax and all that. And I just don't want to get myself, well, I'm not going to get myself into a position where I'm in debt and I'm just worrying about how I'm going to, you know, repair my car and how I'm going to be getting myself to work and earning money and all the rest of it. So I think I definitely made the right decision when it came to selling my old car, or breaking it in parts and selling it, and you know, getting this car, because it's a cheap, reliable, economic car. And you know, don't believe all the myths out there that, you know, you're just going to be spending more on an old car, because you're simply not. Like, don't think that you have to keep up with the Joneses as well, that you have to get the brand new latest car that you really shouldn't be buying. Because let's be honest, if you're earning say 20,000 a year, you shouldn't be buying a £30,000 car, whether that's, you know, financing it with a bank loan, with, you know, by means of leasing. You shouldn't be doing it, because you're definitely living beyond your means right there. I don't think you should be spending more than your annual salary, more than half of your annual salary on a car, because let's be honest, cars go down in value. That's essentially half of your annual income is going down in value right there. So if you earn £20,000 a year and you're spending £10,000 on a car, you have to be prepared for that £10,000 to be going down in value, to be losing money. So, you know, I don't think you should be spending the majority of your income on a car. It's just silly. Like, people think that because they can afford the finance payment that they can afford the car, which is just not right. Like, these luxury, like, brand new cars that people are buying, like BMWs, like M2s and like M3s and M4s, and like Audi RS6s and Audi RS4s and whatever, like, people that are buying them, that these cars are made for millionaires and not made for like some 21-year-old guy who's just like earning £20,000 a year. It's really not. So if you do decide to go down that route, you're not setting yourself up in a good position for the future. So if you're going down that route, how are you effectively going to save for a house, and, you know, set yourself up for a good life essentially, because once you own a house, then you can invest in other things. You might want to buy another house, and then, you know, what, all the rest of it. So yeah, I just think people don't really think with their head and just think, oh well, he's got a new car, so I want a new car, and they're just, you know, trying to keep up with the Joneses, which I don't really agree with. I don't really care, like, if someone looks at me and goes, oh look at it, he's an old banger, like, I don't care, like, I've got money in the bank, do you know what I mean? So it's just my opinion. But yeah, I guess that's the be all and end all. That's why I decided to drive a 13-year-old Vauxhall Corsa. Like I said, it's not going to be forever. It's just until I've saved up enough cash to buy myself another car that I want. I'm not going to let you know what it is, obviously. In due course, later on in the year, you'll see what it is, and I just can't wait to start making videos on it, you know, like revealing the car and then like making the first modifications and all the rest of it. It's just going to be so like exciting to do. Which if this is your first video of mine that you're watching right now, subscribe, because there will be a lot of car content coming later this year. I just can't wait for it. I want to, you know, be trying to go to some car shows and all that good stuff as well, because I do have quite a big passion when it comes to cars. I could just really enjoy it. Like, I really enjoy working on them as well, which the car that I'm in right now, like, it's the most I've ever like worked on a car out of my own choice. Like I said, there was things that didn't need to change, but I've definitely learned a lot as well, and I've definitely gained a lot more confidence. Like I said, last month I had to change the alternator. I only had like 2 hours to change it because it went before I needed to go to work, and I was debating like paying a garage 50-60 quid to do it, because I was like, well, if I don't get it done, I'm going to miss out on a day's work anyway. But then I thought, you know, I'm just going to give it a go. It can't be that difficult. It might take me a couple of hours, and honestly, like, it was so easy. There's just 3 bolts. Well, I just had to get the take the drive bar off with the automatic tensioner, and then there was 3 bolts, 2 electrical connectors. Take that one off, put the other one on, and I was done in like half an hour. So it's really surprising how easy certain jobs are. So I've rambled on enough anyway. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. That basically explains why I drive a 13-year-old Vauxhall Corsa. Just want to thank you guys for watching. Please give it a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll see you in that next video.